السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. إلا الله رمضان الدعوة التامة الصلاة القائمة محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن سيدنا حبيبنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. أما بعد. My brothers and sisters, today I want to reflect on my travel, my trip abroad. I've just come back from Bangladesh after having been there for 2 weeks, 14 days. After 15 years, I've traveled over there. And when I arrived, many of my families who come from there, relatives, were expressing their disappointment and sadness that they'd not seen me for 15 years. Some have passed away, sadly, may Allah have mercy on their souls, and new ones have been born since who have never seen. So naturally, there was an element of disappointment in my long stay away from the country of my origin. I was born there, though I've lived most of my life in the UK. When I told them I couldn't come to Bangladesh because I've been politically banned by the previous administration, they were surprised. They said, "What? How is that possible? Why would you be banned?" Sadly, the previous government that fled, and most of them are now living in India at the blessings and mercy of the butcher of India called Modi. You can see the connection. Those who seek asylum with a butcher of a government called the BJP government, you can understand their connection and what they were doing to the country. So after the government had fallen, I thought I'll go and see if my fate is still the same, if I would be arrested. But alhamdulillah, there was a huge change visible in the environment, in the country, and in the people. When I arrived at the airport, usually those who are traveling from the UK to Bangladesh, they land at the capital city, Dhaka airport. They're terrified of what's going to be their fate. Which government official is going to stitch them up? Which one is going to be asking for what bribe? Which one is going to say you are missing this document or you've got that document wrong? Just make up stories as you go along, just to be able to extort as much money as possible from your pockets. That's what expats' terrifying experience would be, and you would read about it and you would hear about it. So I was naturally worried, on top of having a political bounty on my head, thinking what's going to happen to me. But my brothers and sisters, when I landed at the airport and I walked through the arrival area, I could sense a feeling of freedom in the air. People were not looking over their shoulder. There were no longer busybodies pretending to be busy trying to help you. There were no longer officials walking around flashing their badges and asking for bribes underneath. You could see none of that in the airport. So I sensed a lot of relief. And I looked around to observe the same in the eyes and behaviors of those who have arrived. And there were people who were receiving you at the airport with a smile, with a greeting that's very uncommon. When I arrived at the immigration desk, the gentleman on the other side was smiling, gave me his pen to fill up a form, took my passport and said, "Welcome." And then he said to me, "I don't see a record of you ever coming to Bangladesh in my system." I said to him, "That's good. Maybe I came when your country was not digital." He laughed. These are political signals to show that my ban has disappeared from the system. I'm no longer banned. Why do I bring this to your attention? My brothers and sisters, for any society, whether it is a Muslim country or a non-Muslim country, but particularly for today's discussion, a Muslim country, for its success, we need some key components present for that society to be classified as Muslim and Islamic. If it's not Muslim and Islamic, you could say very quickly, or could see that very quickly. Just the number doesn't make it Islamic. When many of the scholars have traveled, I think particularly one that I remember, if I remember his name correctly, I think it was Jamaluddin Afghani, or one of the other scholars, Abdu, or one of them, who were traveling through Europe and went back to the Muslim countries where they came from, and they said, "We've been to Europe and have seen lots and lots of non-Muslims, but a lot of Islam. And we have traveled to the Muslim countries and we have seen lots and lots of Muslims, but no Islam." It's a very remarkable statement coming from great scholars of the 19th century. Not today, years before. But this is so true even today. When a media, television station or radio station, I can't remember, or the newspaper I think, did an interview with me. And I said in my interview, Bangladesh is less Islamic than Britain. They said, "What?" I said, "Britain was more Islamic than Bangladesh." And the journalists who were interviewing me, they took exception to my statement. So I explained why. And I explained what Ibn Taymiyyah said, rahimahullah. He said, wherever there is justice, there is Islam. Wherever there is no justice, there is no Islam. This is one of the great scholars of Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah. Him saying this makes the entire concept of Islamic understanding of Muslim society very different than the one you and I are used to. When they did a survey of the world to see which countries are most Islamic or most Muslim in their nature. Guess which countries they found listing the top. The top 5 were not Muslim nations, Muslim majority nations. Top 5 were New Zealand, Finland, Ireland, the top 3. New Zealand, Finland, and Ireland were identified as the top 3 Muslim-natured country in the world. Most Islamic country in the world today. Doesn't that say something about us Muslims in Muslim-majority countries? That we have lost our way. The values that we are supposed to be following and subscribing to and adhering to, they've been lost by the wayside, by our behavior or our lack of knowledge and lack of commitment to these cardinal principles. So I want to remind you, my brothers and sisters, without anyone taking any offense, whichever country you come from, whatever persuasion you hold on to, I'm not attacking you. I'm giving you my personal experience of a recent trip in Bangladesh. And believe you me, I've traveled across 50 nations of the world today. And amongst the 50 nations, a large number of them have been Muslim. And I still struggle to find Islam in those countries. No, it is not true if you think I did not see some trying to practice Islam. Well, I did. For example, first day in Dhaka city, capital city, my most breathtaking experience in my life, maybe, I could say as much as that, is to wake up at Fajr, hearing the echoes of adhan going from every direction imaginable. I haven't heard adhan like this even in Mecca. They say Dhaka city is the city of mosques. Wallahi, it is true, it is the city of mosques. I stood there in my room listening to the adhan and crying my eyes out, thinking, subhanallah, what a beautiful experience to wake up to so many beautiful call to prayer. And yet, the very time you go out to mosque to pray, the very people who are walking to the mosques to pray, the very streets that you take to go and pray, are littered with examples of non-Islamic behavior and non-Islamic lifestyle, littered with it. And yet, only a few minutes ago, I heard the most beautiful chorus of adhan coming from every minaret, every mosque in the city. So I say this to you with great deal of sadness in my heart, that I have seen many Muslim countries with millions of Muslims. In those countries I've seen very little Islam. And I have traveled across Europe in countries where very few Muslims live. And yet I have witnessed and experienced the most magnificent Islamic behavior in the non-Muslim societies where I have gone and enjoyed my time. So what does it take for a country or a people to be Muslim and Islamic is what I am trying to address today. There are 5 key components of a Muslim society. Not exhaustively, but 5 key components that must be present for any society to be Muslim and Islamic. Number 1, that society must at all times and at all cost offer its members, regardless of their background, regardless of their status, dignity and honor that Allah has given to all human beings by virtue of Allah creating them human. So Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Allah has given karama, dignity and honor to the children of Adam. Scholars have interpreted this to say, children of Adam includes everybody. Even a criminal must be given dignity and honor while he or she is serving their prison sentence. Even if the criminal was to be put to death, they must still be given dignity and honor. We know the story of Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu and the woman who was being put to death for adultery when she was stoned to death. And when blood spilled over to Umar's body and Umar made a deriding remark, derogatory remark to the lady who was punished for her crime. In fact, she confessed to the crime and insisted on being punished, for she wanted to appear in front of Allah clean and pure, punished on this earth, then face the punishment in the hereafter. And upon hearing the remark of Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu, Rasulullah was not happy. He responded and retorted Umar, saying, "Oh Umar, Allah has loved the tawbah of this woman so much that if her tawbah was to be distributed over a whole valley or a country of a people, every single person in that particular area would be forgiven." Here, Rasulullah has asked this person to be punished for a crime, and yet did not tolerate derogatory remark being made about her while she was being punished for a crime. This indicates, my brothers and sisters, how Islam promotes and particularly adheres to the concept of karama, giving every single human being dignity and honor. Dignity and honor means you are born with Allah-given honor. You are born a human being as opposed to an animal. You are born by Allah's mercy and creation. You are born and created beautifully and complete. There is nothing wrong in the way Allah has made you. You are born on this earth as His representative, Khalifa, to represent Him and His values, to walk on this earth and be the heir to this world. He says, "Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa." Allah said to the angels, and I want to send a group of people who shall inherit this earth, will become the heir to this earth, represent Allah, and that is human being. So every human being, whether you're a Muslim or non-Muslim, whether you obey Allah or disobey Allah, whether you're a sinner or you're a virtuous person, you're born with dignity and honor. And every human being must be treated with dignity and honor, regardless of their social, their economic, their financial, their moral, or their religious status. I've seen people deriding one another based on their economic status. So for example, a rickshaw driver is looked down upon in a country like Bangladesh. Oh, he's only a rickshaw driver. A person who cleans the street is looked down upon. Oh, he's only a cleaner. People make mockery of people's profession. Ah, he's only a fisherman. Oh, he's only a cobbler. He's only a blacksmith. They make mockery of people's profession, indicating they have no idea what it means to treat one another with dignity and honor. Allah teaches you that on your prayers every day. You could be a cobbler, you could be a street cleaner, or you could be a king or the most powerful emperor on the face of this earth. When you stand in prayer, you're the same, standing in the same direction, bowing in the same way to the same Lord, Allah Azza wa Jal. So dignity and honor must be the first and the foremost feature of a Muslim society. If that's missing, Islam is missing. If that's missing, it is not a Muslim country or an Islamic country. I have struggled to find, sadly, dignity and honor in truckload in Bangladesh when I was traveling there. For Bangladeshis, please don't get upset. I am also Bangladeshi. But I have great desire to see every Muslim country in every part of the world improve. And I say this with great deal of sadness, that a country of 20 million Muslims could be one of the strongest and the most powerful, 20 million? No, more than that. 200 million Muslims. As big, tiny in terms of size, but population almost as big as Indonesia. Second largest Muslim populous country in the world. Could be the greatest economic hub of the world. Could have been the greatest nation providing stability, peace and dignity to the world. And yet the country is struggling. Because Muslims have not understood the concept of their faith. They run to pray 5 daily, yes. They do the adhan, yes. They eat cows and they eat halal meat, yes. They have got Abdul Rahman and Muhammad and this, that and the other as the name of their families. But that does not make them Muslim. If we can't treat one another with dignity and honor, then we've missed the boat. Second, my brothers and sisters, is freedom. Freedom, my brothers and sisters, freedom is the essential part of a Muslim society. Freedom is a right that is guaranteed to all people. Of course, with conditions. Because Allah has given you and I freedom, and freedom comes with responsibility. But it is true that a Muslim is born free. You know the story of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, when Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu was appointed as the governor of Egypt. And his son beat up a local Coptic Christian or somebody from the locality for simply winning a race against the son of a noble. And the man beat him up and saying, how dare you win against me? I am the son of the governor. I have the right to win. How could you win? This complaint came to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. And when he came to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, Umar invited Amr ibn al-As and his son immediately to Medina. And he did. He came. And Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said to the guy who was beaten, take this stick and beat the guy up, just like he beat you up. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu instructed that this son of a noble should be humiliated in public. The guy who complained said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I don't need to beat him up. The point has been made. Umar said, no, go ahead and beat him up. I want you to beat him up. I want you to beat him up. I want the world to know that no noble can have the right to take away your freedom. And he turned to Amr ibn al-As and said, Ya Amr, when did you take up the right to imprison people and take away their freedom? When Allah's servants, the mothers, have given birth to their children with true freedom. Every single one of us have been born free. Who gave you the right, Ya Amr, to take away the rights of human being to remain free? When I traveled in Bangladesh, people had suffered in that country for 15 to 17 years because an autocratic government decided to take away their freedom. Lock up any opposition. I met a man who was in prison in a house of mirror, it's called, for more than 8 years. I met him day before I traveled. Wallahi, the indignity of those people, because the government, a staunchly human rights violating government, locked up its opposition, taking away freedom of people. Nobody has that right. If British government took away my right, I would take them to court. When American government denied my right to travel to America, I fought with that government, with the American government. I threatened to sue them. I was this close to lodging a petition in the American courts when the American embassy wrote to me saying, you can have your visa back. You don't need to fight back. You have the right and take it. A non-Muslim country called America. They took my visa away. They had this system in place to return it because they respect freedom. Bangladeshi government took away my right to travel to the country where I was born. I couldn't take Bangladeshi government to court. They would have made me disappear in 2 seconds that I landed. They went looking for me in Bangladesh, in my father's property, just in case if I was there. If I was there, or if any property was in my name, they would have usurped it, stolen it, like they've done to thousands and thousands of people in Bangladesh for the last 17 years. Taking away people's right to economic freedom, taking away people's right to political freedom, taking away people's right to religious freedom, taking away people's right to be free. Wallahi, when a nation has no freedom, that nation is not Islamic, nor is it a Muslim society. Freedom Allah has given. No freedom exists in Saudi Arabia today. Try and speak in Saudi Arabia like I'm speaking today. My head would be rolling on the ground in no time. Scholars who have spoken are languishing in prison. Try and speak like this in UAE and see what happens to you. Try and speak like this in Egypt and see what happens to you. Try and speak like this in any Muslim country anywhere in the world and see what happens to you. They claim to be Muslims. The most important feature of Islamic society is freedom. Allah given freedom. Allah given freedom. Allah given freedom. And nobody has the right to take that away. So I have traveled through Muslim countries. And I have seen many Muslims and I experienced very little Islam. I've traveled through and I live in a non-Muslim country. I've seen very few Muslims, but I've seen a lot of Islam. My brothers and sisters, third feature of a Muslim society is that society collectively and by state's law, by its governing system, will protect life of people, will protect properties of people, will protect intellects of people, will protect families of people, will protect faith of people. It's called Maqasid al-Sharia. The objective of Islamic law. It is to establish justice universally to all people in all parts of the world. I asked a group of journalists in Bangladesh, where do the Muslims of the world go to seek asylum? They said, what do you mean? I said, have you ever heard Muslims going to Saudi Arabia seeking asylum? Have you ever heard Muslims going to UAE seeking asylum? Have you ever heard Muslims going to Egypt seeking asylum? No. They come to Europe seeking asylum. Even the despots, when their terms are over, I'm talking about the dictators and despots, Even if when the term is over, they run to Europe and America because they know their life, their property, their intellect, their family, and their faith, whatever they have, will be protected. My brothers and sisters, sadly, for too long, I've seen in Bangladesh, that's the subject of today's discussion, people's right, people's life, people's property, people's intellect, people's family, and people's faith have been tarnished by government after government. One group of thieves rule, the next group of thieves are waiting to rule. And they have no shame in waiting to steal the country's wealth and loot. I discovered this morning one guy who was a media tycoon in Bangladesh. He had 165 bank accounts. 165 bank accounts. And I did the calculation. My Bengali calculation may not be accurate. But he had stolen from Bangladesh 3.8 billion pounds. One man. 3.8 billion pounds that he had stolen from Bangladesh. Ministers after ministers in the previous government had stolen. One of them has 150 luxury homes in central London. How does a minister from Bangladeshi government afford one house in Knightsbridge, never mind 150? This is called theft in its grandest scale. It's called grand theft by grand thieves and looters of those nations. It's not only confined to Bangladesh. The Pakistani governments, successive ones, Nawaz Sharif and the likes, own properties and luxury homes all around the world. The likes of the Muslim rulers in all parts of the world own these obnoxious amount of wealth. They don't provide protection to the people that they serve. They don't provide protection to the life, the property, intellect, and family of faith of those people at all. Therefore, those countries cannot be classified as Islamic or Muslim. Number 4, the rulers must be God conscious. Those who rule those countries must be God conscious. Once upon a time, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu was ruling. A man came and complained. He said, "Yeah, Ali, during the time of Abu Bakr and Umar, there were very little fitna. Why is it that at your time we have so much fitna?" Ali ibn Abi Talib looked at the man and he said something very powerful. He said, "When Abu Bakr and Umar were ruling, they were ruling people like me. And I am ruling people like you." You get the message? We get the rulers we deserve. Unfortunately, our rulers are representatives of us, unfortunately. But those rulers don't represent us because they are nothing but despots. Up and down the Muslim world today. Name me one Muslim country that is truly enjoying freedom. Maybe Malaysia, you would say. Okay, let me give you Malaysia. Maybe Indonesia. Okay, let me give you Indonesia. Maybe Turkey. I'll give you Turkey. 3 countries you have named me. Name me one more, please. One more country where relative freedom and the rulers are good and God conscious. I struggled to find one. Palestine has been massacred. What have these so-called good and God conscious rulers been? My brothers and sisters, nations, people need rulers with good moral standing, sound character, and commitment to serving the people that they claim to serve. Commitment to serving, not stealing. Commitment to serving, not looting. Commitment to serving, not taking them for a ride. And if they don't rule accordingly, get rid of them. Well, you may turn around and say, well, how do we get rid of them? We don't have the system. So that's the problem. Who can get rid of the rulers of Saudi Arabia? Who can get rid of the rulers of UAE? Who can get rid of the dictators of Egypt? You can't. Because they are born to rule. That's what they think. Who gave them that right to rule by birth? In Islam, there is nothing called born to rule. You rule because you are competent and people have chosen you. Like Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu was chosen by people. Like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was chosen by people. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu was chosen by people. Ali ibn Abi Talib was chosen by people. Like the standard of Khulafa al-Rashidun, they've given a standard. Let the people choose the rulers. And you're not born to rule. Most of those rulers who rule today won't even be allowed to, I won't even trust my cat with them. Never mind a nation. And finally, the 5th, there must be rule of law. Every Muslim nation must have rule of law. Rule of law, rule of law, rule of law. That's why we have the Quran. That's why we have the Sunnah. That's why we have Islam, Sharia. It's called rule of law. You subscribe to it and you abide by it. Otherwise, there will be chaos in society. If there is no collective conscience by which you come together, collective contract called social contract, by which you abide and you live together as a society. It's called rule of law. Because rule of law doesn't exist, nothing happens. Nothing happens. You can do what you like. You can get away with it. You can steal someone else's land, nothing happens. You can bribe your way, you can buy a judge, no problem. In fact, sadly, rule of law is disappearing from even the Western world as we look around today. Rule of law, rule of law, rule of law, my brothers and sisters, is a cardinal principle that we can never ever compromise on. And that must be the feature of a Muslim society. Everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. Everyone must be treated equally in the eyes of law, including the Khalif. When Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh was assigning, when he bought a horse, and the horse was defective, he came back to claim that this horse was defective. They assigned a ruler. Umar was the ruler of the world. They assigned a judge. The judge ruled against Umar, saying, yes, ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you say this horse was defective. If you can return the original horse that you bought without having ridden it, he will give you money back. When Umar al-Khattab heard this beautiful statement from this ruler and realized how just the ruler was, he assigned him as the chief ruler, chief qadi of the Muslim world. Rule of law applies to everybody, whether you're the president or the prime minister, whether you are the dictator general or whatever you think you are. My brothers and sisters, I want to finish. 5 key principles I've outlined to you as the features of an Islamic society, a Muslim society. Number 1, offering all its members dignity and honor. Number 2, freedom, rights and responsibilities, freedom given to everybody. And everybody must have it. Nobody has the right to take it away. Number 3, the rulers must be God conscious. And number 4, there must be protection to life, property, intellect, family and faith. And number 5, there should be rule of law. These are the features of a Muslim society. If they don't exist, that's not a Muslim society, nor is it an Islamic society. Think about it. Apply this in your life and the context in which you live. And inshallah, if Muslim communities become conscious and aware of these principles, then they begin to change. They can show the world what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to have an Islamic society, what it means to have Islam in our day-to-day life, living, ruling and serving the people. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. My brothers and sisters, I want to finish here. I want to finish here by saying, I'm not giving you doom and gloom as a picture. I'm giving you these key findings because we need to know, only through knowing we can bring about that change. I asked a great man in Bangladesh who organized a meeting for me to meet the journalists and the local leaders. I said to him, how do you expect to be the leading light of your society when you just came out of the masjid and I saw you had a piece of paper on your hand in which you had your snack that you ate, and then you scrambled it and you just dropped it on the floor. I said to him, how do you expect to rule a country where you can't even protect your own environment? You don't even think what you've done is wrong. How do you expect anyone to take you seriously? He kept on looking down saying, I'm really sorry. I said, I'm glad you said sorry, but I'm afraid it's not enough, because this kind of behavior has become normal. Spit here, clean your nose in the open, throw rubbish on the floor, eat what you like and drop them where you go. Everywhere mess, and you call it a Muslim society. An-nazafatu min al-iman. Cleanliness is part of your faith. Basic things are missing from the Muslims today. Basic things are missing from the Muslim countries and communities today. Don't cheat. Everybody's out there doing their best to cheat. Who can cheat the maximum out of who and become quickly rich? Basic elements missing from a society. We can't, my brothers and sisters, we can't. We will not, we will never receive Allah's blessings if we behave like this. Especially if you're going to be claiming to be Muslims. It requires a standard that you fulfill. It requires a criteria that you complete. Otherwise, you are lost. We are lost. May Allah forgive us for our failures. May Allah unite us in our hearts. May Allah enable us to improve our standards. And may Allah free all the countries in the world from dictators and despots. May Allah enable every single Muslim in every part of the world to live the standard of Islam. Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Ya Akramul Akrameen. Free the countries of the world, Ya Allah. Free them and restore peace and stability in the world, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Make the Muslim societies a true representative of your deen, Ya Allah. Make the people of the Muslim countries better Muslims, Ya Allah. Enable us to improve our standards, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Enable us to treat one another with dignity and honor, Ya Allah. Enable each other to enjoy and practice and allow people to be free, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Enable us to protect each other's lives, property, intellect, honor, family and faith, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Replace the despots and dictators, illegitimate rulers, and replace them with better rulers, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Enable us all to live by the law, rule of law, and make rule of law a norm in every society, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Forgive us our mistakes, Ya Allah. And finally, we make dua for Palestine. Ya Allah, free Al-Aqsa, Ya Rab. Free Palestine, Ya Allah. Free Palestine, Ya Allah. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Destroy all the genocidal maniacs, all the perpetrators of mass murder, occupation, and human rights abuse, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Remove them, Ya Allah, and replace them with better rulers, Ya Allah. Better people, Ya Allah. And restore on this earth peace and stability, Ya Allah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني يذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون والله يعلم ما تصنعون. أقم الصلاة.